All right, welcome. Today we're going to get super practical. We're talking about making these small, tiny changes at home that can have this huge impact on your child's well-being, their behavior, their ability to just cope. It's all about creating a sensory-friendly home. And trust me, it's way simpler than it sounds.
Okay, so let's start with the big idea, the core concept behind all of this. This quote, it's absolutely crucial. So often what we might see as misbehavior is really just a child's nervous system screaming for help. It's communicating that it's either totally overwhelmed or maybe even understimulated. The key thing to get here is that it's not a choice, it's a reaction. So what are we even talking about when we say a sensory-friendly home? Look, it doesn't mean you have to turn your living room into some kind of therapy clinic. No way. It's just about being aware, really tuning into how everyday sensations, sounds, lights, the feel of things, how all that stuff affects your child. And then just making these small, thoughtful tweaks to support their nervous system. All right, here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the idea of a calming corner. Then we'll get into tuning sights and sounds. After that, we'll talk about touch and routine, and we'll wrap it all up with a fantastic toolkit of budget-friendly ideas you can start using right now.
Okay, let's jump right in. We're starting with our first and maybe the most concrete strategy of all, creating a dedicated safe space. A little spot where a child can go to just reset their nervous system when things get to be a little too much.
So what is a calming corner, really? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but its purpose can get kind of mixed up. Think of it as a foundational piece, like the cornerstone of a sensory-friendly home.
And this right here, this is maybe the most important distinction we're going to make. A calming corner is a supportive tool. It's a safe haven. It is not a timeout corner. It should never, ever, ever be used for punishment. It's a place they choose to go to feel better. That's the whole point.
And you know what? Building one is so simple. Just find a quiet, low-traffic spot in your house. Could be a corner of the living room, their bedroom, wherever. Toss in some soft things, pillows, a beanbag. You could even drape a blanket over a couple of chairs to make a little tent. Add some gentle lighting, like a small lamp. And here's the key. Introduce it to your child when they are already calm and regulated, not in the middle of a meltdown. The words you use here are everything. It's what makes it a positive tool. You could say something just like this. Hey, when your body feels too fast or too loud, you can come here to relax. See how that works? It empowers them. It helps them learn to recognize their own needs and eventually use that space all on their own. All right, moving on to section 2. Now we're going to look at all those ambient things in our homes. The sights and sounds that are just always kind of there in the background. We're going to talk about how we can tune that atmosphere. Okay, sound. Wow, this can be one of the biggest triggers for an overwhelmed nervous system. Just think about the constant noise in a typical home, right? The TV is on, but nobody's watching. The blender goes off. People are talking over each other. For a sensitive kid, those totally normal, everyday noises can feel incredibly jarring. But the solutions? They're often so simple, and they cost absolutely nothing. Just turn off the TV if no one's watching it. Close the door when you're doing something loud, like vacuuming. And here's a good one. Sometimes adding a consistent, gentle sound, like a fan or some quiet music, can actually help. It kind of masks those other sudden, unexpected noises that can be so hard to handle. But what about the kids who are on the complete other end of the spectrum? The ones who are constantly making noise themselves. Well, they might actually need more sound, but they need it in a structured way. So you can meet that need with something like a planned music time or singing action songs together. It gives them the input they're craving, but on your terms. And just like sound, light has a massive impact. Those harsh, bright, fluorescent overhead lights, they can be really agitating. But a super simple switch, like opening the curtains for natural light during the day, and then using warmer, softer lamps with yellow-toned bulbs at night, that can completely change the mood of a room and a child. Okay, on to section 3. Here, we're going to focus on 2 really powerful sensory tools. First, the world of touch. And second, something you can't see but is so important, the structure of a good routine. So the first step here is just to be a detective. Just observe. Every single child has their own unique preferences when it comes to touch. Does your kiddo shy away from certain textures? Do they hate the tags in their clothes? Or are they the opposite? Are they constantly touching everything and everyone, just craving that in? And once you've observed, you can start to support them.
For a child who avoids touch, something as simple as cutting the tags out of their shirts can prevent a daily battle. For a child who seeks touch, you can provide that input in a controlled way, right? Give them some Play-Doh or a bit of water or sand to play in. It meets that need so they aren't constantly trying to get it in other ways.
Okay, now let's talk about that invisible tool I mentioned, routine. Oh man, this is so important. When a child's green knows what to expect, what's coming next, their nervous system doesn't have to be on high alert all the time. That predictability, it creates a feeling of safety, and safety is the foundation of regulation.
And building a routine doesn't mean you have to be super rigid or have a minute-by-minute schedule. Not at all. It's about consistency with the big stuff, meals, bedtime. It's about using simple verbal reminders like first dinner, then bath time. And it is especially about giving warnings before you switch activities. That 5 more minutes heads up, it's a game changer. It helps their brain prepare for the transition and can totally head off a meltdown.
Okay, we're at our final section, and honestly, this might be the most empowering one of all. We are going to talk about your sensory toolkit, and we're focusing completely on things you can do for free using stuff you already have in your house. First up, I want to introduce a really key concept called heavy work. It sounds technical, but it's not. It just means any activity that involves pushing, pulling, or carrying things. These kinds of actions give this amazing deep pressure input to the muscles and joints, and that is just incredibly organizing and calming for the nervous system. And check this out. This shows just how everyday chores and playtime can actually be heavy work. Does your child need some of that deep pressure? Have them help carry in the groceries or push the laundry basket. Do they need to move their body? Let them jump on pillows or do animal walks across the living room floor. Need some oral sensory input? Drinking through a straw is fantastic. See? These aren't special, complicated activities. It's just about reframing daily life.
So the most crucial point here, and I can't say this enough, is observation. Sensory support is not one size fits all. What calms one kid might totally irritate another. A weighted blanket might be a lifesaver for one child and feel, trapping to another. You just have to pay really close attention to your child's reactions. If something seems to be making them more agitated, just stop. Try something else. You are the expert on your child. So let's just pull it all together. What are the big takeaways? First, behavior is communication. It's the nervous system talking. Second, you don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight. Start with one small change. Third, observe your child. You have to understand their unique needs. And maybe most importantly, remember that you already have the tools. They're right there in your home.
And that really just leaves us with one last question for you to think about. After everything we talked about today, what's the one small, simple change you're going to try first? What's one thing you can do today to start creating a more sensory-friendly home for your child?